Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar. This is a BIA Advisory Services and a SalesFuel webinar entitled New Year, New Revenue, Top 10 Verticals for Ad Spend and Growth in 2021. My name is Patrick Buno. I'm a Marketing Manager with BIA Advisory Services, and I'll be running the webinar for you guys today. So we're going to give everyone else a few minutes to log on and get settled. So as always, while they're doing that, we're just like to go through a few housekeeping items with everybody. We're going to start off by reminding everybody that we are recording at all registered. Links to the on-demand version of the webinar, as well as a PDF of the slide deck. So keep a lookout for that. If at any time during today's webinar you experience any technical difficulties, please just email us at webinars@bia.com. We have staff that standby that can try to assist you with that. And then finally, we just encourage everyone to be interactive in today's webinar. As you'll see, we have handouts for you to download. We're going to have a poll later in the webinar. We have a follow-up survey that has to take a few minutes to fill out after the webinar is over. And also, anytime today's webinar, we have times for questions. So please, anytime a question comes to you, go ahead and type it in on your questions box on your GoToWebinar panel. We'll try to get you all your questions today, and if we don't have time, we'll be sure to follow up with you separately. So with that, I think we're going to go ahead and get things started here. I'm going to turn things over to one of the moderators for today's session and the host, the Vice President of Communications with SalesFuel, Audrey Strong. Audrey, take it away.
Thanks, Patrick. Yes, so welcome everybody. We're so pleased you're here today. I want to welcome you all and thank you for joining us. And here are your panelists for today. Tom Buno, the CEO and founder of BIA Advisory Services. Seeley Smith, our President and CEO over here at SalesFuel. Celine Mattison, the Vice President of Insights and Analytics for BIA Advisory Services. And like we said, go ahead and type your questions in as we go. And if we don't get to all of them, we will be answering them offline after this as well. And please do take the survey at the end. So I'm going to hand it off to Mr. Buno now. Tom, take it away.
Okay, thank you so much, Audrey. And thank you all for joining with us today. This is the first in a series of webinars that we're going to be doing. And we wanted to give you an overview picture as we get started. So this first slide is from our BIA Advantage platform. And what you'll see here is our estimate of local advertising for 2021. And what you'll see is that we're estimating this year there'll be about $137.5 billion in local advertising. We track this for 16 different media. You can see from this pie chart, some of these categories are much larger than others in terms of the media. And, 2020 was a devastating year. There's no two ways about it. We know about it. A lot of our clients have been hit, and we're starting to move out of it. So as you look at this number, what's important to understand is that we're actually projecting a $3.4 billion increase in 2021 over last year. So we are starting to see us coming out of this pandemic. Unfortunately, 2020 really took its toll. You'll see that our $149.5 billion estimate in 2019 declined to $134.1 billion last year. So we're still going to be down from 2019, but we're starting to make some of the ground back. So we have some grounds for being optimistic, but there's still a lot of uncertainty out there related to the pandemic and what it means for the first part of this coming year. Next slide, please. So this is an example of some of the data that we track. We actually have sorted our media into two buckets, traditional and digital. And what you'll see is that from 2019 to 2021, there was a $17 billion decline in traditional advertising. At the same time, we see that digital is actually going to increase by just under $5 billion from 2019 to 2021. So there is a shift that's going on. It was accelerated in 2020, and we'll see it continuing, but not so rapidly going forward. Next slide. So what you see here is our forecast out to 2025. We do this for every market in the country, both television and radio markets. And you'll see that for the 16 different media, when you take a look at the two different buckets, one for traditional and one for digital, you'll see that we're projecting traditional media to grow at an average of 2.5% per year out to 2025. And we have digital growing at almost 11% per year. Within the different media, we still see print media continuing to contract. We see that cable, direct mail, radio, TV are growing at slow, moderate rates. We see more rapid growth for out of home, primarily because it was hit so hard in 2020. Without us traveling, out of home advertising, no cinemas, really took a toll. So we see more rapid growth, but from a much smaller base than what we saw in 2019. On the digital side, rapid growth for many of these different media, especially mobile, which is a very large category. We have growing at 13% per year. The most rapid growth will be in OTT. And this is an area that we think a lot of our clients are starting to make offers to their prospects, combining with their traditional and offering some OTT in addition to other digital. Overall, we're projecting local advertising to grow at a compound annual growth rate of a little over 6% per year. Next slide. And it really varies significantly from vertical to vertical. So we track these 12 different verticals. We then break them into 95 categories. So there's a number of categories under each one of these verticals. But I wanted to highlight that by 2025, you've got some significant advertising on digital for 7 of these different verticals that we track. Real estate is already well over 50%. That's going to continue to be more of a digital play. Technology is also over 50% and will continue to grow. And then on the right, you'll see that there's some of the slower transitioning to digital in terms of those verticals. So that's a quick overview just to give you a perspective, kind of a global perspective of what we're seeing. And now we're going to start to drill down into 5 of the different verticals that we're going to profile today. We'll also have a handout for 5 additional verticals, and we'll be going into some detail on some of the subsequent vertical webinars that we hold. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Celine Mathieson.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. So, Tom showed you that there's going to be a lot of digital ad dollars and a lot of growth. And like you said, what we're going to do is look at 5 verticals on here in a little more detail. And I just wanted to tell everybody, as we're going through these slides, on each one of the verticals, you're probably going to be thinking about questions to ask. And we're going to pause after each vertical. So while I'm talking through and while Lee is talking through his slides on that vertical, feel free to type in any questions that you have. And before we go on to the next vertical, we'll try to answer them for you. So what are you looking at here? So BIA, we look at the auto vertical, and it's an auto category. If you look down on the right, it shows you that there's 8 verticals within this. It's not just car dealers. It includes other parts of automotive, including repair services, tire, RV, motorcycle. And what you're looking at here is what we're expecting. This is from our Advantage data and forecasted data. What we're expecting the auto category to look like and the vertical to look like in 2021. TV is going to get the largest share of the 14.1 billion. And then on the right, you can see the other 4 media that are going to have the largest share. So online, again, we were talking about digital. There's online, mobile, but also radio and TV are going to have a lot of that share. Next slide, please. So then, that traditional digital split, again, if you see here, traditional has got 51%. That's of all of our media, and digital has 49%.
That much in a long time. That's a third or fourth
share of the media. And then when we look at the right here, that gives you what in digital, what specific products and categories have the largest amount of share of those ad dollars. Now, TV, is the largest of the traditional, and it helps at the top of the funnel to generate strong return on investment for desktop and mobile paid organic searches and drive website. And if you look on the right, search makes up almost 29% of spend. So, and mobile's a critical channel for automotive marketers. It helps them engage with consumers, and mobile app downloads are a core KPI right now. Advertisers are using mobile apps to assist consumer research. including locations, inventory options, and booking test drives. And with the pandemic, that's impacting that usage by consumers of those mobile apps and digital a lot more. They're spending more time, and in the future, we had found a survey that found that a quarter of respondents, after everything goes back to normal, said that they would continue to spend more time comparing makes, models, prices, and promotions online. And then we also have the emergence of some new online, like Carvana, for example, where you don't have to go to a dealership to shop, buy, and finance your car. They even bring the car to you. So that's having a big impact on how the automotive advertising is being bought and sold. And additionally, too, people are do-it-yourselfing for their car repairs versus taking it. And some places are even offering, services like coming to your house to take care of minor repairs or oil changes. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lee.
Thank you very much, Celine. Next slide, please. So we want to talk a little bit about the digital marketing opportunities for auto dealerships and for local media sales. One of the things we want to take a look at is that 12.2% of new vehicle shoppers, these are people that through our annual audience scan study that we do with over 1,500 online adults, have indicated that they intend to buy a new car in the next 12 months. This was taken during April of last year, so still during the pandemic. And 12.2% of them say that they are including electric cars in their purchase consideration, which is up considerably from previous years. Several automakers will be advertising new EVs in 2021, including the Ford Mustang Mach-E, good-looking car, the GMC Hummer, Audi, Hyundai's got their own, Volkswagen with the ID4, they got the Chevy Bolt. That's my car right there. That's a Tesla Model Y, and I love it. So it is one of those things that's going to be advertised quite a bit this year. So next slide, please. In addition to that, as Celine touched on there, the driveway is the dealership. So we have online buying apps now that are becoming more and more significant. People, quite frankly, hate dealing with auto salespeople. And, so there's a credibility issue there, and they will actually go and use mobile apps to avoid that experience. And so that's something that dealerships now have to contend with and keep in mind in their advertising. The total cost of ownership is a key purchase factor, especially during the pandemic recession. So we're looking at things like gas mileage, serviceability, and so on. So the consumers may aspire to buy a new car, but they'll drop back to buy used. That's another thing we have to consider. So not just advertising the new stuff, but also the used stuff. The good news here is that new car production is expected to return to pre-pandemic levels this year. Light vehicle sales are expected to be at 15.6 million units in 2021. And just like the advertising that Tom mentioned earlier, this is up from 2020, but still below 2019. And that's going to be a prevailing theme that you're going to hear throughout the day today. When we talk about dealerships, it's not just automotive. Think about boat dealerships with personal watercraft, motorcycles, power sports. And these are popular right now because they provide socially distant recreation. So until we get vaccines that are, that cover more than 1% of the country, this is something that's going to be important throughout much of 2021. And many people are hoping to return to the workplace in the second half of the year. But with that, there will be lingering concerns about public transportation and just a little discomfort there. People like the flexibility and like the freedom that comes with having their own vehicle and be able to come and go as they please. So that's another reason why the auto dealership advertising is looking pretty good for 2021. Next slide, please. So I want to get, with each of these sections, I'm going to give you some tactical takeaways for media sales professionals. And I'm just going to highlight 3 of them, and you'll get these slides if you're registered for this webinar. So I'm not going to read them all over. I'm just going to hit the bold points here. Keep in mind that 90% of car shoppers now start their buying process online. They don't talk to the dealership till later in the process. You have to help dealerships to remind buyers of the value they provide so that they're not buying their car on eBay or any of these mobile apps that are becoming so prevalent. It's important to remember that you combine digital with traditional advertising because the traditional advertising still influences purchase decisions as much as digital when it comes to this category. And we encourage you to use AdMall's automotive brand reports for each automotive brand dealership for dealer insight, for customer insight, and why they're selecting certain dealers over other dealers, and also what else are they in the market to buy and what are they looking for. And of course, then what digital media and what traditional media ships topic. Audrey.
We do. We have a couple questions. This portal is supposed to mute all the attendees. However, people are typing in and I'm hearing it as well. Please, everybody, do me a huge favor. Make sure that your phone and your device is muted. So we hear somebody talking in the background. It's definitely not one of us. So thank you for that courtesy. And we do have some questions. So Carolyn Best would like to know, auto has really moved the lion's share to digital, specifically the pure play operators. What is the best approach to get a piece of that pie? Is it OTT? Lee or Celine? Celine, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, OTT is growing steadily. So OTT is a really good opportunity there for sure. Especially because with as many viewers, I mean, the targeting that you can get on OTT with different audiences is definitely a way to go.
Great. Another question from Mike Fleming would like to know, how do you separate out the 22.3% online and the 14.4% mobile for the analysis? Don't they blend together, i.e. IP addresses?
So that's a great question. Our definition, this is a definition of pie charts. I know there was something about, someone asked about social being part of online display. So we separate mobile out. Our online pie piece is mostly search and display. So it's not, mobile has its own piece of the pie, its own channel on that. So so if you wanted a full digital, you would want to combine. We have, of the 15 media, we do have like TV on OTT, TV online, radio online, and others. So you need to combine those to get the full. And what we've done in this is, in that traditional digital split pie, we've done that for you. Out of the 15, we've kind of allocated them the way they need to be.
And I would add to Celine's comments then as well that the pre-roll and post-roll advertising, video advertising, is also extremely effective and popular with auto dealerships.
Two more quick ones, then we'll move on. Is social part of display?
Yeah, I just answered that. Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, but also it's part of search. I mean, it just depends, because it's really more part of display. But on that stack chart, it can also be part of the video on there too, depending on what the content. That stack chart is more of a product. So as we go through these, when you look at the right at that stack chart, it's really the products being sold. It's not so much the channel.
Got it. All right, let's move on. Next vertical, please.
Oh yeah, so home improvement. Home improvement's a doozy. As you can see in here, home improvement, if you look on the right again, our definition of home improvement, these are the categories that we're covering in it. That includes, your service providers and retail. So just FYI on that. People, when you go into Advantage, you can actually get breakouts, so you can really look at the plumbers and HVAC separately. But 7.3 billion. No surprise, direct mail gets 36% of it. And then again, we see that nice traditional digital mix of the top share by media for 2021. Next slide. So we can see here a little different pie chart that's split in our 15 media categories, traditional and digital. Traditional has more, but I hate to tell you, digital ad spending is rising. So right now it's a little over a third, and it's getting closer to breaking 50% by 2025. So next 5 years, that pie chart's going to look a little different. And while direct mail is the biggest media component for home improvement, it's going to shrink. It is not growing versus what's growing for traditional. And when we talk about what's growing on the digital side, mobile is on a growth curve. It's going to be the second biggest media component. It's going to grow to be 19% from what it is now. It's not on this pie chart, but on the last one, 14% in the next 5 years. It's the second largest spending increase. And why is that? And again, with the impact of COVID, services provided by home improvement businesses are of a special and often emergency nature, especially with all of us living in our homes right now. And most businesses, depending on what they are, will continue to operate with a higher demand on service. And consumers are spending more money on their home and spaces. And at this time in their homes, they need for, home offices or home learning. And when you look on the right at the product mix of that, you can see that even on the digital side, they're a little more aggressive when it comes to different products within that. Just a quick note, so on classified verticals, especially for home improvement, that's going to be like Angie's List, any digital site that provides, enhanced listings or, a page where they're driving leads or they're driving traffic from their site because its core is on home improvement. And Lee?
Next slide, please. So let's talk about some of the trends that are happening with home services that will impact local media sales this coming year. Home improvement projects for work from home fitness, larger kitchens, patios, and decks are expected to grow 4.1% in the first quarter of 2021. After that, we'll see where it goes, but it's supposed to be a very good year for that. So while this category is very broad, it definitely includes things like retail. So we can talk about paint stores and floor covering stores and everything like that. What I want to focus on right now are the contractors. And this is important as millennials have children, they're going to be taking over as move-up home buyers. And with that, then, bigger homes, more stuff that has to go in the home, more work that has to be done in the home, more maintenance. Fencing and hardscaping is up in popularity right now, in demand, I should say, as homeowners are wanting privacy from the neighbors. You're spending more time in the backyard, grilling on the patio, on the deck, and Audrey doesn't want her neighbors peering into her backyard, as she's enjoying the swimming pool. So that is very common these days. And other things that are very popular: sheds, greenhouses in the backyard, living rooms that also function for video conferencing. So imagine then you're in a living room, you have the seating arranged in such a way that it's on looking a giant TV screen with a camera on top. So if you have a family and you want to spend time then with grandparents or other family members celebrating birthdays and the like, this is becoming very popular as well. Smart home controllers are also among the hot trends for 2021 that you want to be aware of. Next slide, please. I want to throw out an interesting stat for you that comes from our audience scan study that replacement window shoppers are 72% more likely to respond to pre-roll video advertising than the average US adult. 29% of the audience has actually taken action after seeing a pre-roll video commercial, advertising video in the past 30 days even. And that's an example of one of the types of profiles that we have in the audience scan database of over 1,300 different audience profiles. And those include things like carpet and floor buying, people that intend to purchase handyman services, lawns. So we've had some technical difficulties then with some of the internet services that on the in the Washington D.C. area and everything like that. So pardon that brief interruption. We were talking about digital marketing for home services, so I'm just going to jump back into that and give you some tactical takeaways for media sales professionals. A good discovery question to ask is how many new projects can you take on for 2021? Because some contractors already have their dance card filling up. Another discovery question to ask: what percentage of your projects are financed? So if they can also help provide the financing, there's a good chance that they're going to have more business coming from that. And of course, then home contractors always need to continue to promote their enhanced safety protocols in all their advertising because it's still an issue. And before we dropped off there for a second, I was just sharing a stat about replacement windows shoppers being 72% more likely to respond to pre-roll advertising. That's one of 1,300 audience scan profiles that we have in AdMall, as well as 440 local account intelligence reports for a wide variety of home improvement advertisers in this particular category. So that is available then to AdMall subscribers. So let's go, Audrey, what's next?
So when we had the room dump out, we lost the questions, but I did read them before we had the interruption. There was one person that in particular, this I thought was an excellent question, that said that most home improvement services are so busy right now that they can't even get in front of them. What is your suggestion on how to possibly break through and get the meeting for the pitch?
So I think that has to be creativity, and that also then has to be doing things that the typical media sales rep isn't doing. So if that means contacting them, at night, early in the morning, if that means sending them lunch or something like that, if they're busy, in the office, on job, something like that. You have to be a little bit creative now to be able to stand out and stand apart, to be able to get that. So that just means not working the 9 to 5 and just sending out the typical emails like you usually do. Using video is a great way through email as well to help cut through that clutter.
Great. And as I see people are coming back in the room, welcome back in, everybody. Technical difficulties. Thank you for coming back in. And if you had questions, please retype them into the question window. Joan Mestris has a question. Can you give some examples of smart home controls, please?
Smart home controls are anything that is controlled by Alexa or by Apple HomeKit. So that allows you then to use your smart speaker then to be able to tell it to turn on the lights, or it's like during the holidays I had to turn on and off my Christmas trees, and I also then had it programmed so that other Christmas lighting around the house and outside the house or whatever, I could just give it one voice command and it would turn everything on. I also had some things programmed where the lights come on at sunset and they go off at sunrise. And of course, so if you're familiar with Siri or Alexa or anything like that, you already have a pretty good idea of how that works. It just controls things around the house, whether it be heating, lighting, cameras, doorbells, you name it.
Yeah,
go ahead, Celine.
Well, I was just going to say, Delta just has a great commercial I'm sure people have seen for water, where your faucet, you can hook up to your Alexa.
That's great. I got to get that. I see more people coming back in. One question we had earlier, and Tom, you might want to answer this when you were doing the digital overview that several people asked. So I'm just going to ask it now, and then we'll move on to the next vertical. Is people wanting to know the difference, as you define it, between OTT and TV online?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have that explained in Advantage in more detail, but the bottom line is we see the streaming capability right now of OTT, and we separate that from any other online television advertising.
Got it. All right, team, let's move forward. Thank you for coming back, everybody. Onward we go.
All right, next slide. So healthcare, yeah, big on everybody's mind right now, but healthcare is a big vertical. Again, $9.4 billion in healthcare vertical spend. And on the right, you can see hospitals, offices of optometrists, and health and personal care stores. Personal care services, which includes beauty salons, spas, plastic surgery, all that fun stuff, right? Again, direct mail gets a huge whopping part of that. And you can see on here too that we do, again, have a good mix of traditional radio and TV, OTA is broadcast TV, and print newspaper. So next slide. A little different here too, like home services. Traditional will continue to have the greatest share in the next 5 years. Digital is going to eke up to about 40% by 2025. It's still not going to be in the next 5 years 50-50 split. Direct mail again was the top, as we saw on the other slide, online TV, radio, and online, and they're all going to show growth in 2021. So when we think about digital, actually, surprisingly, I mean, email, if you look at email on the right, it's only 2.4% right now in 21, but it's going to show the largest growth in the future 5 years. So over 2025, email is going to grow a lot more. So healthcare advertisers have a really positive view of traditional ads, as we can see from how they allocate their ad dollars. As consumers continue to report that they act after seeing, we had one survey that we found, seeing that a TV ad or hearing an ad on radio made them jump. And I think, Lee, that's probably from your audience scan data, so I'm sure we can talk about that later. Now, COVID, consumers are home and they're really focused on their health, personal and practical and necessity products, and that's all increasing advertiser spend for healthcare. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Lee.
Yeah, and obviously pharmaceutical is big in this category. We're not going to talk about pharmaceutical because we could do an entire webinar on that. So it's like, you will continue to see plenty of ads on TV then telling you how taking their medication could result in a wide variety of side effects, including death. So we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about the healthcare providers. Next slide, please. So some of the trends that are happening in the industry then that will impact local media sales is that telehealth will continue to grow as patients seek to avoid the virus spread. So, yeah, they're not going into the urgent care centers, even the doctor's offices, if they can avoid it. They're more than happy then to use a telehealth. Telehealth has been especially prevalent in the area of psychiatry. Any cold and flu screens, just the minor stuff like that. That will continue to be a lasting thing even after COVID-19 is in our rear view mirror or whatever. This is something that will continue on and on and on, even getting into teledentistry and things like that you can expect to see. But those are years, a couple years down the road. For 2021, though, right now, this is what we're faced with. COVID-19 has caused a backlog of elective surgeries across all providers, especially hospitals, obviously, because they're worried about taking care of the COVID patients first and foremost, as well as all the other emergency things that they normally do. Unfortunately for hospitals, this has really cut into their profit margins and has caused them to reduce staff and cut costs and everything like that. And particularly with the last wave that we're currently experiencing in December, January, as we're recording this webinar, then a lot of hospitals have actually said, no, we're going to cut off elective surgeries or push them down the road. That still doesn't mean that's going to affect then surgical centers, plastic surgeons, and like that, where they can do outpatient surgery and everything like that. That does not impact that, but there's still a backlog there. The line between primary care providers and retail medical clinics is starting to get blurrier. So if you've driven by a CVS at any time in the past couple of weeks, you've seen the big banners out for their health hub asking you to come check that out, minute clinics and things like that. So that's also something that we're seeing as well. Demand for facial procedures, including non-surgical fillers, is expected to be up considerably for 2021. Most small independent dental practices are also very optimistic and expecting revenue growth in 2021. And this is a trend that cuts across all types of healthcare providers, is that tech-savvy patients respond to tech-savvy practices. So it's very important then, if that is, if your target then has any type of tech savviness at all, where you need your clients, your accounts need to demonstrate that for their future patients. Next slide. And here's an interesting stat. 2/3 of non-invasive cosmetic surgery patients in the US have viewed and or posted to Instagram in the last 30 days. 2/3. So if that type of advertiser or whatever obviously needs to be very active in using their Instagram account. Next slide. Again, we won't read all of these things to you. I'm just going to hit the highlights, but it's really important to focus on local SEO to really fine tune those keywords. High value content, being the thought leadership that can be provided to future patients, very important. And also their patients' mobile experience are great opportunities for media salespeople. Discovery question might be, how are you creating content for current and future patients? Yeah, and then drill down and get curious on that about, okay, what types of content, how is that being distributed, how do patients know about it? And also, we highly recommend that you use the zip code level healthcare needs data from AdMall for geo-targeting. And those are just some examples, some suggestions that we have. Audrey?
Okay, we have some questions from this section. Tom Moore, thank you for your question. Why is direct mail getting continued large shares? Isn't ROI on direct mail low?
Well, our definition of direct mail includes nationally targeted local. Direct mail is all targeted local. So if you think about the healthcare vertical and like pharmaceutical, that's why you're seeing a large share of it. It's also, think about who goes to hospitals and doctors more. It's not the young, it's the old, and old respond more to direct mail. It's really the targeting capability, but you're going to see that. I mean, that's where that shift to digital, and it's digital now, and especially OTT has advanced targeting. To be able to reach different audiences, that's why we're seeing a shift to that, and again, mobile. So it just depends, most of the money is being, is geared towards people that in healthcare that need to be at doctors, need to do, depending on the category within that, it's going to be older people. So,
and they're also buying it because it works. So it's like, and that really won't shift until digital proves that it works better, which it does in many cases, but digital, the direct response still works.
Yeah, and that's why like email's growing, because email you can target by audiences. It's a very small bit, but that like email's an example where digital can take over in the future.
Robert Pinard, I hope I'm saying your name correctly, sir. Thank you for your question. Thanks for attending. Define a local alert, please. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, on top of every slide, it says vertical alert, right? Is that what we're talking about, or was that something Lee said?
No, I believe that's on your slide, Celine. That's
Okay,
a BIA Advantage thing.
Yeah, so in Advantage, what you guys see on that slide where I'm showing, Patrick, just go to the next slide, even though we'll talk to financial services, just so I can have it up to show. So see how you're seeing this spread out? This is actually a tool that we have in Advantage for our users that allows them to create this actual slide, and they can customize it to present. And so it's called a category alert. That's the report name, and so that's why that's on there.
And it's not to be confused with AdMo's local account intelligence report, which also has their own PowerPoint slides, which you can include into your presentations and slide decks as well. Similar, but yet somewhat different, because one's strategic and great for planning and other things as well. And ours tends to be more tactical for use by the salespeople in the field.
Right, that's a good definition, Lee, because ours is more storytelling. So this is a way for a seller to be a trusted advisor, to be able to sit down and tell the story of what's happening. For example, we're going to do financial services. So if you're sitting down with an accountant, this is a great way to lay out the lay of the land, and then, to take what Lee has in their report in a more tactical direction.
One last healthcare question, team, from Joan Mestris. Hello, Joan. Thank you for your question. With COVID and the fear of assisted living, nursing homes, and wanting to keep seniors at home longer, do you see more growth for in-home healthcare?
Yes, absolutely, yes. As a matter, even to the point where some providers who do not provide in-home services are actually starting to provide in-home services. So yeah, that's definitely a trend that I actually did not include on my trend slide because I ran out of room on the slide, but it's definitely an issue.
Good question. All right, financial services on deck.
Okay, so financial services is a doozy. As you can see on the right, it includes, your auto insurance, health insurance, banking, mortgages. There's a lot of verticals, and these all underneath here can be broken out in Advantage for those that are Advantage users to look at. But we kind of encapsulate them all together. And in 21, it's going to be $15.8 billion. Again, there's direct mail getting 26% of it. But as you can see, mobile and online both are up there with radio and broadcast TV in getting most of the ad spend for 21. Next slide. So here we see digital and traditional split. Traditional still is strong, but digital is going to catch up, and it's going to be 50-50 by 2023. Search, as you can see in here, has got 40% of that digital ad spend, and that's going to grow in the next 5 years. But again, email is going to be showing the most growth. So financial service businesses will be moving spending away from direct mail. Again, direct mail is going to be losing its spot as their #1 media channel in the future. Again, this is a big category. There's lots of different, financial insurance type companies in here, and the pandemic has driven both their short and long-term changes in how consumers transact and businesses transact for financial services. And, financial services firms are still struggling and recognizing and adjusting to that. A survey from 2020 revealed that almost 50% of insurance agents cited the challenges of because of remote, building new customer relationships. That's their #1 difficulty that they're having. And then, consumers are shifting behaviors. They're doing more online self-serve, especially with auto and property insurance. There's a lot of comparisons that they can do out there. And, the slowdown in branch traffic to banks, because of the COVID outbreak, has accelerated consumer adoption of online banking apps and other tech. I don't know about you guys, but I have a college student right now. I have Venmo, Cash App, and our bank app, and I'm transacting on all of them. PayPal. Businesses, again, on the business B2B side, they're benefiting from PPP loans and the ability to obtain banking financial products directly through companies like Amazon and Stripe without having to go into the bank and do that. So that's all that consumer and business, customer behavior going online is really changing also in how they advertise and market. And I'm going to turn that over to Lee now.
Okay, we've got some more trends in the industry that we want to share with you. Next slide, please. There's a frustration with big banks, particularly among small businesses. And this is an opportunity for community banks and credit unions to be able to step in. So it's a great opportunity for local media sales there. We are anticipating changes in tax laws with the new administration. No matter how you feel about it, the change is coming one way or the other. The stock market continues to be strong at this moment. And so these are opportunities for financial advisors and accounting firms and anybody that advises you on how to shift your money and how to allocate your money. Big opportunities for 2021. Lending rates and the desire to lower the monthly expenses are advantageous for refinancing. And there's also many alternative fintech solutions growing. So for example, Celine mentioned the various apps and everything like that. You don't have to go to a bank to get a loan. There's crowdsourcing for that. There's various apps for that sort of thing, and for other types of financial services as well. All kinds of different alternative insurance options popping up as well. So all of those are things that need to be advertised so that people are aware that they exist. Next slide. And here's something interesting for you to consider is that financial planning clients are 60% more likely to respond to a company heard on an audio podcast than the average US adult. So this means heard, it means maybe the host is talking about it, a guest is talking about it, might be a sponsor of a podcast or anything like that. So particularly those of you who are selling radio, podcasting, this is definitely a market that you should be going after for sponsors and also for guests. Next slide. Credit unions can really benefit right now by focusing their content marketing on financial literacy. And credit unions are, by the way, once upon a time, I remember when I was selling advertising, it was brought up that we should go after credit unions, and we were laughed out of that meeting room. Credit unions don't have any money to spend or anything like that. Well, that's not true. As a matter of fact, we had one of our clients who works for Spectrum Reach then make one sale using all kinds of AdMall data and brought in $362,000 from one single sale using AdMall. So there's plenty of money to be had out there. One of the questions you want to ask of credit unions is, what are your eligibility criteria? Because it's not really clear. It's like, okay, do I have to be a member of this credit union, but how can I be a member of this credit union, and will I qualify or not? And some people just don't bother thinking about that because they think that they don't qualify, when in fact they probably do. You want to help your financial advisors create and market virtual seminars and workshops that replace and improve upon the face-to-face event. So what I'm talking about here is these are the things like when they send letters out then that, hey, come and join us in a meeting room at a fine restaurant. We'll buy you a steak dinner. In exchange for that, now we've got a captive audience. We're going to do a demonstration, going to give you a presentation or whatever, and try to rope you into becoming a client of ours and that sort of thing. Well, those things are not happening right now. But what is happening, and we've had a couple of guests on the Manage Smarter podcast, one just this week, we talk about this thing in particular, is about using the Zoom events and like that to create virtual seminars. And you have to work a little bit harder at it because you don't have the steak dinner there, but there's more value that can be provided there. And you can help your financial services advisors do these types of things. Of course, they have to be promoted as well, whether it be through email or anything like that. You want to use LinkedIn and thought leadership to target those SMBs who are frustrated with the big banks, and you do that through the PPP guidance and other financial advice that perhaps they're not getting from the big banks right now. And so small businesses right now, many of small businesses are, they're challenged right now, especially in the restaurant category, but anything in the services industries, of course, they're facing big challenges right now, but all small businesses, because it all kind of rolls downhill. So when the big corporations cut their budgets and everything like that, it affects the small businesses who are providing them with services and things. So looking for guidance, a lot of them more so now than ever, and there's great opportunities for community banks, credit unions, and the like. Audrey?
We have A comment from Pam Grialis. Pam has a great sense of humor. She says, "Why didn't I invent Venmo? I could have been a millionaire." I think we all have a
I think
like-minded
she thinks too small. I think she could have been a billionaire.
And then I have several questions from many of you, all asking the same question. Basically, it is, other display is a significant portion of the ad spend in this category. What is making that up? What is that made up of?
So
Thank you all
that's
for that
why-
question.
So again, like Lee talked about, all the online sites that you can compare auto insurance, or Lending Tree is a perfect example, or sites that talk about financial, where there is financial advice, any kind of vertical niche site. So within financial services, if you think about it, you think about what's out there on the web. It could also be sites like I'm trying to think on the TV side, Lee, help me here, like investing site that runs pre, post, and mid-roll ads and stuff too. It can be that sites like that, but where they're really driving leads and driving, getting a larger audience because of the topics or subjects related to that vertical. Hope that's a long answer, I know, but those are the examples.
And then Brad Bullock is asking what FinTech is.
FinTech is financial technology. So that's just an abbreviation for that. So basically, the apps that Selena has just mentioned, for example, or examples of that, things like Zelle and all types of software services, if you will, that helps move money from point A to point B. That anything that's e-commerce, for example, it has an element of FinTech to it. So that's kind of what we're talking about there. It's where technology then is now playing a major role in the provision of financial services.
Well, we've got about 12 minutes left. Let's move on to, what are we going to, restaurant next? Yes.
Yeah. Since we don't have a lot of time left, I was just going to kind of say, the restaurant category, we know there's, again, in our restaurant category, just FYI, it includes food. So everybody's, making bread and trying new recipes at home. So that includes the supermarkets and grocery stores, and besides the different restaurants. It also includes, beer, wine, and liquor stores and convenience stores in this number. So just take that with a grain of salt. Go ahead, Lee, did you want to say something?
Well, yeah, because certainly then when you're not able to go out to restaurants right now because of all the lockdowns and everything like that, you're still making dinner from home or whatever, and you're probably drinking a little bit more than if you're a drinker at all. So there's certainly that. And also the other thing that came to mind, Selena, is like, I love a good sourdough. So the bread making comment was fantastic. Next slide, I want to share some trends with you that might not be totally obvious.
Keep going.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Oh, no, it's okay. I mean, this is just showing the split. And I have to add to that, Lee, that there are restaurants that are opening during the pandemic. And just real quickly, I live in Dallas and I live in the northern suburbs. And we have Nebraska Furnish Mart and a whole venue Grandscape. They had their soft launch right before COVID hit last year. But the restaurants, and we had a ton of new restaurants in there, all local, small businesses. And they actually are opening. We had a couple more that just opened. And so just remember that too, that even though there's a big challenge, restaurants are still opening throughout this.
That's where I was headed. So next slide here. And so the pandemic has required restaurants to create more quality off-premises experiences, not just delivery through DoorDash or anything like that, but it could be like family meals or barbecues in a box or some things of that nature. We've taken advantage of quite a few of those in my home. Many consumers are getting tired of eating at home and can't wait to go back out and dine inside of restaurants. Particularly those of us in cold weather places right now, where the outdoor dining then is not a good idea when it's cold and 10 degrees outside. So safe dining must be promoted. States are now starting to ease restrictions on indoor dining. We're seeing that outdoor dining will pick up as the weather warms up in many places around the country. So that's something to keep in mind there. So some positives in it for the restaurants that can survive this winter. Plant-based meat substitutes and clean eating is becoming increasingly sought after by customers, and it should be affecting the menus. But this is a key point that really impacts everybody on this call, is that 1/3 of restaurants now have an employee dedicated to marketing, promotions, and social media. 1/3. So a couple thoughts on that. Next slide. Check this out. Pizza takeout and delivery customers are 70% more likely to respond to OTT advertising than the average US adult. 36% of people who order pizza for takeout or for delivery have responded to an OTT ad in the last 30 days. That's from our audience scan study. Next slide. Yeah, so for the 2/3 of restaurants without a marketing employee, this is not your opportunity to function as their local marketing expert. And it's important then that was right now, it might be challenging, but they need to gear up as the workers start to return to their office places and the travel restrictions start to ease later in the year, which should pick up the leisure travel vacations, and we should start to see, so restaurants will certainly see a boost from that. When exactly, we don't know, but yeah, it's not going to be the first quarter, and yeah, it's not going to be the early second quarter as well. And AdMall has this great tool called the digital audit, which actually then shows restaurants and other advertisers, if you will, what their digital footprint looks like, but also compares that to where their customers are using digital. So it's like, here's where you are compared to where you should be. And we highly recommend the use of that tool. Audrey?
So we just have one question here. Somebody wanting to reconfirm that the restaurant category does in fact include the delivery services under the umbrella.
I know that ours does. I mean, we have, as restaurants is for us is the big category, and of course we do have delivery and delivery services and takeout, and we even have a category for food trucks in ours. BIA, Celine, what's yours?
Well, I think if we go back, Patrick, can you go back to the slide real fast? Just go back 3. Sorry. Keep going. Keep going. Go back to the, yeah, where we have the definition. So ours includes QSRs, full service restaurants and bars, and specialty restaurants, food and beverage stores. So we're more on the physical, not on the delivery side of it. But if the restaurant like does delivery, like that's included in it. So ours is a little different.
Very good. All right, our last vertical today, we're going to talk automotive.
No.
No,
We've done automotive.
Oh, I'm
we're
sorry,
done.
we've done automotive.
We're done.
Right. So
Keep going.
where we
there we
are
go.
right now is we're going to talk a little bit about some of the takeaways
Okay. Very good,
on
Tom.
this session. Before I get into this, one thing I would mention is the wide variance from market to market. We really haven't talked too much about that, but obviously, depending on what government intervention, whether there's been lockdowns or not, really have a wide variance in terms of the impact in those markets, especially for restaurants. And by us focusing on a market by market basis, you can see markets that are open versus closed. With regards to the takeaways, really there's 3 that we'd like to share with you as we wrap up today. One of them is really the idea that you really need to be focused on the opportunities. And that's what we try to highlight both at BIA and at SalesFuel. Where is the opportunity in the market? How large are the dollars? What's the competition look like? A key for a lot of our clients is really targeted sales campaigns. Let's go after this category specifically because direct mail represents 35% or whatever the number is. So a lot of what we work with our clients with, both from the data side as well as the strategic consulting side, is really where to focus your attention. How can you increase your overall share of wallet? And that's really a focus for us. Second point is on digital. And we've talked a lot about the shifting trend towards digital. It's critical that you include digital in all of your proposals. It's also a better offer for your prospects. The combination of creating the awareness from your media and combining it with digital really is a way of increasing the overall lift for your clients and your prospects, and really is something that you obviously need to promote, especially when it's growing much more rapidly than traditional media. The third point is we want to know what's important to you in terms of other verticals for the year. We do have this handout on 5 more verticals that we don't have time to cover today. You can get that either from the GoToWebinar panel or for clicking on this link. So you can actually hear a little bit more from us, see what we're saying about some of these other verticals. Let's go to the next slide though, Patrick. So this is the time we're going to do a poll. You can bring it up, Patrick. We would like to hear from you what other verticals or business categories you would like to have us cover We have the following 5 listed. Please take a few seconds to indicate what you would be interested in us covering in the middle part of our sessions. We have 3 more scheduled that I'll talk about next, but we're going to get your poll results and then we'll incorporate that into our planning for the remainder of the mid part of this year. Do we need to wait for the poll, Patrick, or can I just go to the next slide?
Yeah, let's give it another minute. People are answering now. Let's just give us more time, and then as the interest come in, then we'll advance from there. Okay.
Lee, is there anything you might want to talk about from market to market, which I touched on briefly?
So, like BIA, one of the reasons why we're partners is that we've always been focused on local. It's very important that the data we provide is relevant for salespeople to increase their credibility with buyers, so that you get invited to the table, so that you get your phone calls returned, you get your emails returned, people actually show up for your Zoom meetings, because we're establishing not only the media company or whatever, but it's really important that the individual salesperson establish themselves as someone of having great credibility. And so the BIA data in combination with all the great insights that we provide you with AdMall, you can pull those up, in just a moment's notice, because preparation is the key to sales, and you can be prepared for every sales call, by just hitting the AdMall mobile app and being able to look at the BIA data alongside of it.
Great. Thank you, Lee. The other thing I would mention related to that is that in every market, we estimate the amount going to Google, Facebook, and other providers. So when you think about that offer you're going to be making in the market, it's good to have an idea of how large those dollars are that are going to other digital players in your market and how you can incorporate that. Here's the survey responses. It looks like the biggest category of interest is accounting and lawyers. We'll certainly factor that in, real estate, and then maybe dentists. Next slide. So we'll incorporate those.
Those are the people, Tom, that keep me from having fun, accountants and lawyers.
Exactly right, Lee. And I know you were interested in lawn and garden. So here's what we have scheduled for the next 3 webinars. As you can see from this, we're looking at doing home contractors in our February webinar, February 23rd. We'll follow that with what we're calling road trips, which looks like at a combination of different things that we think are relevant in today's pandemic, post-pandemic timeframe. And then finally, in April, we're going to be doing OTT, obviously the most rapidly growing category we talked about earlier. And then we'll incorporate your thoughts in terms of these other webinars that we'll be doing in May and beyond. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Celine.
Next slide. So yeah, so what what I talked to today and what you saw our vertical alerts. We've got a lot more data and advantage. We have over 95 verticals, and you can learn more. There's the links on here and subscription. And our clients love Advantage. I love to boast that they give us 4 stars, and over 85% of our clients say that what we provide them and what we showed you on here is very extremely useful in their daily work. And Tom talked a little bit about how it can be used and what we do. And, we encourage everybody to reach out to us and, get a demo. Next slide.
Thank you. Thank you, Celine, Tom, and Lee. And yeah, I was so busy answering people's questions that I got lost there for a second. Thank you. We just want to talk briefly to tell you about our SalesFuel products that we have. We have SalesFuel Sales Manager Training. This is brand spanking new. It's an online management training course that you all need to immediately increase your growth. So just go check it out, salesfuel.com/SMT for a demo. Next slide, please. And I've already had a couple of you ask about our AdMall product. So this is tactical business intelligence for local marketing, as Lee said, and media sales. If you like the data from today, you're going to want to get AdMall. Check out admall.com, and you can already, somebody emailed me already, astrong@salesfuel.com. I'll connect you with one of our team. And finally, because of AdMall and the data that we pull out of it, we do have a white paper available targeting the 5 types of purchase intent. Next slide, please. SalesFuel.com is where you go to get this, resources and white paper. Next slide. So thank you all. Questions and comments, you can send those to me. We will be answering questions individually if we didn't get to your question today. And we're so pleased that you all attended. And please fill out the survey so we can improve on these next several ones we have coming up in the series. And we bid you all an excellent afternoon and a great rest of your day. Thanks for coming, everyone.